attending. Most of you know that we'll be having William Stabler sharing with us this morning about his journey and where he is currently with RUF. I have some announcements to make. Reminder that everybody, next Saturday is our service day. And they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different locations of things to do. If you can look it up on the internet, choose. Julie Lash will be more than happy to help you sign up for those. So please go ahead and do so if you hadn't already. Also, reminder to fill out your survey for the church if you haven't done so already there. Takes 10 minutes to do so. John, you got anything else you want to add to that? Other than it needs to be sent in.
Yeah.
The more information.
If you don't currently have it in your inbox, you can go back to last Thursday. You got a reminder last Thursday, so look back in your either your deleted, your junk mail.
And it will go there. Mine did. And I realized it like 3 weeks later.
You get from the church goes there, so you probably need to fix that.
Yeah. But the more information Flurry has, the better. So please, y'all do your part in getting that filled out. Midweek, reminder we have Missions Market, which will have a lot of the local ministries such as FCA, Mercy House, Friendship Missions, Montgomery Christian School, etc. So look forward to that Wednesday night. Okay, that is it. Kurt is going to introduce our speaker, William. Most of you know already, but again, it's great to have you here with us. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. You guys can find a seat, and if you guys would scoot that way, maybe. I think more people are going to come in from this side. 11 years and 47 days ago was my first day at Trinity Church. And when I got here, not that I'm counting, but when I got here, the kids who were seniors were the class of 2012. And one of those kids, and he was a kid at that point, he was a starting linebacker for the school, and he was also a catcher, and I believe they won the state championship his senior year. And he didn't really go to our church, but he was in and around a lot of our youth group. He wasn't a member at the time. I think he joined not soon after that. And then he went on to Alabama, this student did, and then he came back and interned for us with the youth group. And had a big impact on a lot of people, some people who are now in college and beyond. And then he went to Asia and spent some time there and got a heart for missions. And so it's been really neat to see this guy, William Stabler, go from, a high school senior who, he was kind of a big man on campus, but he kind of, he was still a kid trying to figure things out until now. He's doing some amazing work that I'm sure he's going to tell us about. So, William, I'd love for you to come up and tell us about what you're doing and to teach us. So, thank you. Welcome. Y'all welcome, William.
Thank you, Kurt. Disclaimer, I'm still a kid trying to figure everything out. I'll let y'all know when I get it figured out, but probably not going to be anytime soon. Yeah, thank y'all for being here. I love getting to talk about RUF Global, and I love getting to come and speak at Trinity. And I really do. From, Kurt said, when I was in college and got to go to East Asia for the first time, I had never really thought about missions. I was still thinking about what the Lord was calling me to do with my life. Basically came to Trinity when I decided to go to East Asia for a summer after my sophomore year of college, and was like, help, like how do I get there? What do I do? And Trinity has been so kind every step of the way, whether that was going after my sophomore year for a summer, or whether that was going back for 2 years after graduating and now in my work with RUF Global. It's been Trinity's been such a blessing to me, not just in terms of financial partnership, but also just in and the genuine interest. I remember that made such an impact on me as a young person getting involved with missions. It was like, this church really cares about what I'm doing. And getting to talk with so many of you about the work in East Asia was so impactful for me. So I appreciate y'all, and I'm glad to be here. So now the Lord has called me into a different work. Starting in April, I'll graduate from seminary, and I'll start full-time as the Director of Missions for RUF, particularly working with RUF Global. RUF Global is a new thing, newer, that I'm really excited about, not just for RUF, but for the PCA as a whole. I think it's really strategic and really exciting. So I'm really glad to tell you about it. And I think being kind of a newer thing with a lot of new stuff to introduce, I think the easiest way to do that is just tell you the what, the why, and the how of RUF Global. So what is RUF Global? Why is RUF Global strategic? And then how are we actually going about doing the work of RUF Global? And so that's just what we'll talk about for the next few minutes, is the what, the why, and the how of RUF Global. So what is RUF Global? I'm a visual learner, so this was helpful for me. And there's so much new terminology that I'm like, I just need to figure out how to make some sort of chart. And this is the world's simplest chart. And it took me a good 2 hours just to make it on this slideshow. I was so frustrated. But I mean, I guess it works. It's a beautiful looking chart. So what is RUF Global? As y'all know, we're the PCA, the Presbyterian Church in America. And as the PCA, among other agencies, two here are MTW, Mission to the World, and RUF, Reformed University Fellowship. MTW is our missions agency, RUF is our college ministry. Within RUF, there are three different ministries within RUF. One kind of going from right to left here is RUF National. And that's just kind of RUF as you think of it, just the RUF campus ministry at Alabama, at Ole Miss, at Auburn, what have you. And then there's RUFI, or RUF International. RUF International is RUF's ministry to international students on stateside campuses. So RUF's outreach specifically to international students coming to study in the US on our campuses here in the States. RUF Global is RUF's ministry outside the United States. And so RUF Global, again, is whatever RUF is doing and working on outside of the US. And that's what I'm involved in. Now, you may say, William, hold on. We already have a missions agency. What's the strategic nature of RUF Global then? I'm glad you asked. We are aware and love the fact that our denomination already has a missions agency. And so we are not trying to replace any of the work that Mission to the World does. Rather, we're trying to come alongside MTW and be helpful in any way that we can. And I think it's very strategic, as we'll talk about, for the missions agency of a denomination and the college ministry of a denomination to have a close relationship. And so you can kind of think as RUF Global as kind of a bridge between RUF and MTW. And so we want to do that. We want to be that bridge and help form that relationship between RUF and MTW. And we primarily do that by focusing on two things, campus ministry and mobilization. And so you heard me say those two things over and over again, campus ministry and mobilization. That's what we focus on. And we feel that it's strategic for our denomination for us to do that. And so that's the what. Why? Why are we focusing on campus ministry and mobilization as RUF Global? So first, why campus ministry? Plain and simple, because we've been asked to. We've been asked by MTW and by local Presbyterian denominations around the world to help them get some campus ministries going. And so one thing that's really encouraging to me as an RUF employee is the fact that we're being asked to help with this. And so we're not like soliciting RUF to people. We're not like salesmen, like going up to an MTW team somewhere, or like the Ugandan Presbyterian Church and being like, can we please start an RUF here? We love RUF, we want to start. No, we're being asked to help various MTW teams who want to start a campus ministry, or Presbyterian denominations who want to start their own campus ministry, to come alongside them and help them do that, because in God's grace, we've been around for 50 years. And the Lord has been very kind to give men and women a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom into how campus ministry functions and the unique nature of it. And so we have the opportunity now from the Lord to help grow his church by helping churches around the world develop ministries to college students. And then why mobilization? So when I say mobilization, I'm primarily referring to mobilizing our stateside or our RUF staff and students to get involved in the work of missions. So when I say mobilization, that's what I mean, is getting our RUF staff and students involved in missions. We want to see RUF become more and more missions minded and believe that that will be a blessing, not only to RUF and NTW, but all of the PCA. So why do we do mobilization? First is we want to see the next generation of missionaries raised up. How do you get a long-term missionary? Often, not always, but very, very often, it is by a young person, usually in college, going and doing a short-term mission trip. And at that time, it's a very strategic time in someone's life to where they're still making decisions on what do I want to do with my life? What are my strengths? What is the Lord calling me to? And so it's often on a short-term mission trip that the Lord will stir a young person's heart for a particular area of the world that they're serving in. And then there's kind of a process of coming back for a year or two, and then discerning then with the missionary team, is mission something the Lord's calling me to long-term? And so there's kind of a pipeline that generally happens when a long-term missionary is called. And that's my own story as well. I told you after my sophomore year of college, I did a summer in East Asia. I had no idea what the Lord was calling me to do with my life. And it was on that summer in East Asia doing campus ministry that I began to see I'm passionate about missions. I'm actually giving 40 hours a week to missions, and I'm loving this. I could see myself doing this, and then came back for 2 years to process that call. And here the Lord has called me to be in missions for the long term. And so it's my own story as well, by seeing, by being a young person, kind of getting a taste of what it's like to be a missionary, and the Lord using that to call me to be in this work long term. And so if that's the case, then I think it's incredibly strategic that our missions agency of our denomination and our college ministry that's full of the next generation of PCA members has a bridge in RUF Global to bring those two together. So we see more and more young people going and getting that experience of getting a taste of what missions is like, that the Lord might raise up new missionaries for the future. And so essentially we want to play the long game when it comes to mobilization, not just advertise the needs that are present here and now, but think about, we want to create structures that produce missionaries and play the long game to create a self-sustaining model. But secondly, it's because we want to mobilize RUF staff and students because we want to disciple the next generation of PCA members. As those of you that have been involved with missions know, missions is discipleship. It is an incredibly sanctifying experience to get to go to another area of the world, serve the church in another location. And the Lord uses that to show you your strengths. And in my experiences, to show me a lot of weaknesses. He uses that to really sanctify you. And getting to be involved with the church in different cultural contexts is just such a blessing, can be a blessing both to the church that you're serving, but then to you as well. And the Lord uses that to get you to think through, how can I be missional, thinking about the global church, but also the church here in my neighborhood. And so we know that, every RUF student that goes and does a summer internship is not going to be called to be a long-term missionary. Probably not. In all likelihood, no. But, we want RUF to become more missional, for more of our students to have these experiences, so that when they graduate from college and say, move to Montgomery and start working as lawyer, accountant, whatever their job might be, they're coming in with the experience of having spent a summer in, say, Sofia, Bulgaria, one of our partner sites. And they've spent a summer there, and they've thought through missions, they've thought through vocation, they've thought through the importance of local outreach and global outreach in the church. And so that we want our students to, when they graduate and say move to Montgomery and join Trinity Church, to come in having had those experiences and already thinking about, how, as I join Trinity Church, can I have a heart for Cloverdale, for Montgomery, and for the church around the world? So we want to see more and more of our students having these experiences and coming into the church with these mindsets, and so that we can continue to be a missional denomination. So that's what I believe to be the strategic nature of this work. But how does this work? What are the actual things that we're doing, the structures that we're creating to do these things? So first, how do we do campus ministry? Again, campus ministry and mobilization. So how do we do campus ministry? As you all know, to be an RUF campus minister, you have to be ordained. In order for there to be an RUF somewhere, it has to be led by an ordained pastor. And it's the same thing with RUF Global. For there to be an RUF Global location somewhere, for there to be an RUF outside of the United States, that RUF has to be led by an ordained pastor. But given that this is a work outside the US, and as I said, RUF is not trying to replace MTW, this means we're coming alongside MTW to do that. And so the first, there's different models in terms of what starting an RUF Global can look like. And the first is sending a pastor from the US. And so this would be someone who has graduated from seminary, has been ordained and sent to start an RUF Global. And this person will actually join an MTW team. And so an RUF Global Campus Minister will be an MTW missionary. And so again, we're not replacing MTW in terms of trying to send them and figure out the insurance and the exit plan and all the things you have to think about being a missionary. No, this person will be an MTW missionary. And at the same time, an RUF Global Campus Minister will kind of have a foot in RUF circles as well. And so he'll get RUF training in terms of thinking through starting a campus ministry. He'll be in the RUF network, talking with other RUF campus ministers and area coordinators. And so it's really cool. Our RUF Global sites have a foot in the MTW world and a foot in the RUF world, where they have the missions training of MTW and the campus ministry training of RUF. And so secondly, though, we work also with pastors in local denominations around the world. And so we've been approached by some Presbyterian denominations that have said, right now, rather than having an American come and start a campus ministry, we have an ordained man in our denomination who would love to start a campus ministry and would love RUF training and to incorporate his ministry into the RUF network. So for example, as of January, there's an RUF Global at a university in Kampala, Uganda. And that's actually a Rwandan man who's ordained in the Ugandan Presbyterian Church. And so he's not with MTW, he's not with our sending agency, he's ordained in the local Presbyterian denomination. And so he's been kind of incorporated into the life of RUF training. He has relationships with other RUF Global Campus ministers. And so that's kind of the second model of how this works, is not just sending someone from the States, but also working with ordained campus ministers and other denominations, such as the Ugandan Presbyterian Church. There's a lot of momentum in Australia and the Presbyterian Church in Australia for that as well. So those are kind of the two ways that an RUF Global starts. But here's a question. What if there aren't any ordained pastors available to go to a location? So say we've got an MTW team that is the church that they have planted or the church that they work with is next to a college campus. And they want to do campus ministry. They're starting to do campus ministry. They don't have an RUF Global Campus Minister, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be getting on campus and trying to do campus ministry. Not at all. And so we've figured out a program called the RUF Global Affiliate Program, where we affiliate with MTW teams that don't have RUF staff on them, but we still come alongside them to help them and do some campus ministry training. And so kind of what that looks like is we did this this past year for the first time. And it was with a couple from Tokyo, Japan, a man from Sofia, Bulgaria, and a man in Romania. And so we did monthly Zoom calls with these missionaries where we took them through RUF's philosophy of ministry. And it was helpful as, so these missionaries were, they had received, the cross-cultural training in order to go and be in and live and serve well in Japan and Bulgaria and Romania, but had never actually received any training on like, okay, how do I do campus ministry in these locations? And on top of that, some of them are, they don't really know a lot of other people that are doing campus ministry. And so there can be a situation where someone's starting to do the work of campus ministry, but has never had that specific training, nor do they know a lot of other people that are doing it. And so these Zoom calls, bringing these people together, bringing these missionaries together and walking through some campus ministry training was really helpful. And so I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I was a little skeptical of this when we started doing it, because I was like, all right, you got Zoom fatigue, Zooming from all the way across the world, where like our missionary in Japan, that couple, it's like 10 p.m. for them. But like my boss would Zoom from California sometimes, and it's like 6 a.m. for him. And then we got people all in between. Like, how is this really going to be a good relational formational time? And so we told the missionaries, we just concluded this first year of training over Zoom in January, and we sent them a survey, and we were like, please be honest. Like this is a new thing. It's a pilot program. We think it could be helpful, but like, if it's not, if this was a waste of your time, please tell us. We don't want to waste your time in the future. We don't want to waste our time. We don't want to waste future missionaries' time. Like, it is not going to hurt our feelings if you're like, this was dumb. It really won't. And so we sent them the survey, and they responded, and their responses were so encouraging. I was blown away. I was so encouraged by the work that we've done, and to continue in this work, as they were saying that the thoughtfulness of the training and getting to think through the unique aspects of campus ministry that apply not only, on a U.S. campus, but also on a global campus. And then also just getting to be with and process other people that are doing campus ministry was a great experience, they said. And so this is something we're excited about and going to continue in. And so you can kind of see that the campus ministry work that we're involved in is very training heavy. It's very training centered. And I think RUF has done a really good job at thinking about, because, the question that comes up is, how can a ministry in the US train someone to do ministry in Japan? And I think that RUF is actually equipped to do that, because we've already been thinking about, how do we have, as an organization, we always say a fixed theology and a flexible methodology. Because while the differences between a US campus and, say, Tokyo, Japan, are very different, there are also big differences in doing RUF at Ole Miss and RUF at Harvard, or somewhere out on the West Coast, or, the US is a fairly culturally diverse place as well. And so we've already had to think about, we can't just do a one-size-fits-all campus ministry training for all of our campus ministers, even in the States. And so for 50 years now, we've been developing training on how to think about, let's have a fixed theology. Our theology does not change no matter where we go. But in terms of the way that we operate on campuses, each campus is different. Each campus is unique. And so our methodology then needs to be flexible. And so just in God's providence, that has really prepared us well to work with missionaries, because we've already been thinking through the fact that we're not going to give you like a cookie cutter methodology based on ministry at one place in the States. And so it's training heavy. And I think just in God's providence, he's equipped us to do that. So this is just a picture of, if you can see that, the REF Global Campus Ministries that we have right now, going from left to right, that's Mexico City, which was the first one ever, and then Bogota, Colombia, continuing east, Dakar, Senegal, Lviv, Ukraine, and Tokyo, Japan. And it's a little dated because as of last month, we've added one in Kampala, Uganda. And I'm excited. There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of momentum in the United Kingdom for more REF Globals to start. There's momentum in Australia, as I've mentioned, and other places in Africa. And so there's a lot of momentum for this, and we're really excited about it. So how does mobilization work? We talked about how does campus ministry work, but how are we mobilizing our RUF staff and students to get involved in some of this work with an RUF Global Campus or an MTW team? What are we doing there? Well, the first opportunity is they're called mentored internships that we've developed. And these are primarily for RUF students. And I'm really excited about this program because what's happened for the past year and a half with RUF and MTW is we've been talking about how do we create a community of teams with MTW that's going to be a very intentional team, or rather an intentional community of teams to come together and think through and bounce ideas off of each other concerning how do we have great summer internships that we can advertise to our RUF students. So how do we come together as a community and think through these things? And what happened is two missionaries in particular, Doug Shepard and Lauren Dishman, those two missionaries, they've had a lot of experience with MTW in hosting summer internships. And so they're kind of the leaders of this mentored internship community within MTW. And they're walking through other teams and helping them think about how do we start phenomenal internship opportunities that are, as you can see in the name, they're mentored internships. And so they're internships that are not only about opportunities to serve in another cultural context, although it is important, and a summer intern does get the opportunity to serve the church, absolutely. But the primary focus is that you would go and be a learner before you're a doer, that you would go and you would, going after your sophomore year in college, like me, that you would go and take the posture of, I want to learn about missions. I want to learn about cross-cultural ministry. I want to learn about vocation and calling and all of these different things. I want to learn theology. I want to learn more about the gospel, and taking that posture primarily, and then also having opportunities to serve as well. And so our mentored internships, our summer interns, our students that go, they get a lot of opportunities for one-on-one kind of debriefing and processing time with MTW missionaries. And so it's a very, very relational internship where we know that our young people are being poured into by our MTW missionaries, which is really exciting. And we'll actually watch a video on that here in a few minutes to close. Secondly, we're putting together spring break trips for our RUF campuses. And so this is something in April when I come on full time. This will be something dedicate a lot of time to and that I'm really excited about. So spring break trips can be very strategic when it comes to mobilization and getting a lot of students exposed to the work of missions. But right now, we don't have a ton of our RUF campus ministers doing spring break trips with MTW teams. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One is the RUF campus ministers that do this, they primarily already have a pre-existing relationship with the missionary a lot of times. And so the ones that maybe don't have a relationship with any missionaries, they're not sure where to start. And then secondly, it's very logistically intimidating if you've never led a mission trip and you already have a very busy job, as our campus ministers do, to think about how in the world do I take 20 students to go, to El Salvador for spring break? And so because of that, we want to create a program and a system of partnerships between RUF campuses and MTW teams to help kind of ease that logistical burden on our campus ministers. And so one thing that I'm going to start in April is I'm flying down to El Salvador to meet with a missionary there named Rodney Davila. And Rodney is, it's just so cool the way that the Lord works. I met him by chance somewhere, and he heard that I worked with RUF, and he came up to me and he said, I have such a heart for developing partnerships between MTW teams and RUF campuses. Do you want to work on this? And I was like, absolutely, praise the Lord. And so truly a godsend. And so he and I are going to develop a program and a system that thinks through not just the vision of having this kind of partnership, but kind of the logistics of it. And so we want to see a partnership in a way where an RUF campus in the States is doing a spring break trip to an MTW team every year. And I think that's strategic because as you do that, as y'all probably experienced as a church or as a group, when you go to the same place every year, as a group, you begin to develop a heart for that place, and you get to develop momentum for that place. And the Lord uses that in cool ways. And so we want to see our campuses matched up with MTW teams that our individual RUF campuses begin to develop momentum for and a heart for the places where they're going every year on a spring break trip. And then additionally with that, part of my job will be just removing the logistical burden from our campus ministers in every way I can. And so I'll work with campus ministers who have done this kind of thing before. We'll write like a playbook, a step-by-step guide of these are the things that you need to do to take your group, your campus on a trip, on a spring break trip to visit an MTW team and to set up this kind of partnership. And so the goal is to be able to write that, just a simple playbook, a guidebook for how to do that. And at RUF training, when all of our campus ministers are present, be able to hand that out to campus ministers that are interested and come alongside them in this process. And so lastly, last thing that we do to mobilize is to promote trips at RUF events. You can have all the great opportunities in the world, but if nobody knows about them, then what was the point? And so this is a big thing that I do is there's no, like my boss would say, there's no substitute in ministry for just showing up. Being present is just such a huge thing in ministry. And so I try to be at as many RUF events as I can, whether that's, weekly large groups, RUF conferences, trainings, whatever it is, to be in person, to talk about these opportunities, and then to be available for people that are interested. And we found you can't just, it's hard to replace that. Being in person, talking about these things, getting to converse with interested students and refer them to people in MTW that would be good for them to meet. There's no replacement for showing up in person to be that bridge. So I want to end by showing you a video this is a promotional video for our mentored internships. This video was shot in Bogota, Colombia, and there's an RUF in Bogota. And so these are MTW missionaries that do campus ministry work with RUF. And the point of this video is to kind of give a sense of this is what mentored internships are like. This is what it would be like for our students to come and experience a summer in Bogota or one of our other partner locations. And so I'm going to put this on there and we're going to pray that it works. Let's see.
Y'all come in and sit down. You can see.
For any student who's been in RUF for a while, you've probably heard the phrase God is at work. And there are so many opportunities within the States and within RUF to see that. But God is at work throughout the whole world too. What I'm really excited about is a summer internship program where we have students and interns from the RUF community in the States come and experience life with us here in Columbia. The cool thing about our ministry is we're another RUF ministry. And so they're coming into our context and seeing what that looks like. To do the same things they do in their campus ministry in a different country, in a different language.
I think what's unique about this internship through MTW is that it's a time of formation, and it's a chance for people like me to get to process where God might be leading them. It's a chance to sort of dip our toes in the water of mission work. It's a chance to grow in my ability to engage people cross-culturally and develop the tools that I need to be able to love people who come from a completely different background than me. Really interested that you coming into an organic, loving, investment, kind, we want to know you and help you grow context, and then giving opportunities to relate in intentional ways with us and with our ministry and with students. That kind of study component part. You have a language learning part where you have a tutor, you're having one-on-one meetings with people, you're in our small groups of learning how to talk about scripture with others. You're in our large groups, you're learning about whatever we're preaching through large groups of this ministry. You're learning about relationships, talking about relationships. And then you're just hanging out, you're playing soccer with people, you're eating arepas.
It's not just our team that's doing this. There's other teams offering similar programs as well. Some of those are also in the campuses, also college ministries. Some of them aren't. Some of them are doing English class with elementary age kids, or some of them are doing art in the park ministries, or they're working with new teams, helping them do demographics and get to explore the place where they are and dreaming about the future that that has there. There's a lot of different types of opportunities for people with different stories, different journeys, different passions. See what that looks like.
All right.
For any student who's been in RUF for a while, you've probably heard of.
There we go. All right. Well, I'll word it here. Let's see. I just don't want that to play again. All right, we're good. Yeah, probably maybe the first two rows could actually hear that. The volume was pretty low, but the picture's worth 1,000 words, so I hope you got some sort of sense of it. So yeah, thank you all for just letting me have this opportunity to speak with you. I think where we go from now is if anyone has any questions. I'm not sure. Is Ken in here? I don't know.
Yeah, you can ask questions.
Yeah, anybody have
You
any
can
questions?
Step that way a little
Oh,
bit so you're on camera.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zoom people.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer them. If not,
Where will you be headquartered?
I'll be working out of Birmingham, Alabama.
What are some future countries you plan to send missions to?
So right now, and if you hear the question was some future countries that we plan on sending college students and missionaries to. Right now, there's 13 that we partner with. And those range from Colombia to Cambodia to Ukraine to Europe. And then so really all over the world right now. And then some other spots that there's kind of momentum for is Japan and Peru off the top of my head, and also Riga, Latvia. And so right now there's about 13 locations, and there's 4 or 5 more teams wanting to join the partnership next year.
I know it's really hard to calculate things like this, but what is the rate of success? Like, is there a way to measure how many people come to Christ or something like that through your programs?
In terms of the amount of people who convert, no, we don't have a tracking system for that, but the thing that we're tracking right now in the beginning of stages of this is how many RUF students are going to do a summer internship, to do a mentored internship right now. And so that's kind of what we have set up with MTW to track, is we have a shared Google sheet with MTW's intern department, and we're communicating, seeing how many, an increase in students from this year to last year and that kind of thing. So that's what we're tracking right now, but that'd be out. It's an interesting thing to think about, getting to track kind of what was their ministry like and people they got to meet and share the gospel with. Thanks.
It's kind of a basic question. An RUF minister or an intern and all that, how do they reach out to people? You know, how aggressive are they with that? And how do you build a study, a Bible study, or you just
So like an RUF Global campus
like
minister?
local or global, or
Yeah, so
how do you do it nuts and bolts of that?
yeah, so RUF is, again, there are things about a philosophy of campus ministry that are going to be applicable anywhere you are in the world. And RUF is big on, whether that's in the States or overseas, being a ministry who is operating on campus for just about everything they do. And so we want to be, just have a presence on campus and not be in a posture of asking students to leave campus and drive to get to a ministry event. And so we try to be on campus with as much stuff as we do. But also one thing I've enjoyed about RUF is just the creativity that our campus ministers have and bouncing ideas off of each other. We've had campus ministers, they'll start things like interest groups as a way to bring in other people who may not, especially as the university world gets more and more secular, more and more students who would not go to any sort of Christian event, but maybe like RUF in Tuscaloosa does a barbecue tour. And so there are students who may not go to like an RUF, but they're like, I'd go eat barbecue with some RUF people. And then from there, it's kind of like okay, so they know RUF people, they know we don't fight. And then maybe they could come to a Bible study after that. And it's kind of like RUF's been good about thinking about creative ways to, we kind of call them fishing pools. How do I get out on campus? Where are different fishing pools on campus where I can align kind of things that I enjoy doing with opportunities for outreach? And so there's like the barbecue tour in Tuscaloosa there. So my boss, who's the director of RUF Global, he was a campus minister for years, and he is just brilliant about thinking these things. He would take classes at the university and tries to get other campus ministers to do the same thing, because he loves sports. And so he would go do like a 1 hour credit like basketball class. And then he's playing basketball with students, and he was like, that was a great way to meet people. And so just creative things like that, trying to be on campus and think about fishing pools and kind of on ramps into RUF, again, especially as younger folks might be more hesitant to do something associated with Christianity, go with a pretty relational approach. So then when you invite them to a Bible study or RUF or church, you already have that relationship in place, and they trust you.
William, do you see much resistance from the administrators of universities getting on campus?
That depends on the university. Usually it's not uncommon. My knowledge is probably fairly limited in that, but I could tell you some universities that like Ole Miss, for example, gets to use the gorgeous like university chapel, and they have a great relationship with the administration there. Whereas like the RUF in Bogota, Colombia, there's kind of some friction there. The university in Bogota doesn't have the idea of their ministry being on campus. And so they do a lot of things off campus, but like right next to campus, to try to have as much of a presence there as possible. So it depends on the team. Where's another?
Well, I was just gonna say, people in here may or may not be very familiar with RUF's philosophy of ministry. And I know that's like, you could spend probably a long time talking about that, but could you give them like a thumbnail sketch, like the tree?
Yeah, so there's the formational goals that we want to instill in our students. The things that we want to see our students grow in are a love for evangelism and missions, growth in grace, a love for fellowship and service, and the fourth one, growth and grace, Christian world and life view. And so there's 4. These are the things that we want to say, not just at the end of their university years, but ask us in 10 years if they've grown in these things. And so when we define like success, and what we mean is success in the REF philosophy of ministry is our student growing in these things? Are they involved in a church 10 years from now and still growing in these things? That is where we feel like we've served our students well. Those are the formational goals, we've called them. And then we also have kind of principles. In order to get to these formational goals, you actually don't hear REF campus ministers talking about explicitly, you're not going to hear them say, today I want you to grow in the formational goal of evangelism and missions or Christian world and life. No, but what you will hear them talk about all the time is justification, sanctification, and the Bible. Those are the things we talk about all the time, because, and then glorification as well is kind of being added on to that. And so those are the things that, as we talk about those things all the time, as our students grow to love and trust the Bible, as they understand justification and sanctification and glorification, we trust that they will be growing in the formational goals. And then there are kind of presuppositions as well, and we won't get into all those, but the presupposition that God is at work, that the church is important, things like that. So as we go on the campus, there are things we're already thinking about. So that would be, Kurt left. He asked the question and then he left. Trip me up. And then, that would be a very brief overview of the RUF philosophy of ministry. And you can see those are things that, like, whether you're in the States doing a campus ministry, whether you're overseas, those are things we want any Christian to grow in, no matter the cultural context. Was there Pepper Clark? Did you have a
Yeah, your previous experience was with crew overseas on campus ministry. How does RUF Global differ from what you've done in the past?
Yeah, so we're different primarily, I would say, in that crew is strictly, for the most part, in these kind of programs, campus ministry focused. And they're going to have a pretty similar methodology. All right, I've been with crew. I like crew. And so I'm not trying to blast crew, but I think one reason where we do, one way that we do want to be different is crew can have more of a fixed methodology, no matter where they are in the world, where you're kind of doing outreach in similar ways. And we want to be more flexible in that. And we have to, because since we're working with MTW teams, and thus are working with the church always, every church is not going to have the same ministry. And so we want to, when we develop internships, it's not just like a one size fits all internship or a one size fits all training, but you're going to be trained by, a local MTW team and work with an MTW team doing whatever that team does. And so there's an MTW team in Madrid that does more, they have a team that's full of a lot of artists. And so they've been really creative in doing art outreach in the city. And so maybe RUF students that are majoring in art, enjoy art, will go and do a summer internship with them. Whereas, Bogota, like we just saw, a huge ministry of their team is campus ministry. And so there's just going to be a lot more variety in what we do. And it's always going to be based out of the work of the local church.
Do you have any particular requests that we should pray for,
Yes. So, oh boy, how much time we have?
We can think of a lot of things, but some that we might not think of.
Yeah, I would say, fundraising, one you probably think of, as every missionary is talking about. But just for us in the transition from me being part-time with RUF, working as a seminary student, to full-time, moving to Birmingham, it's just one thing that has kind of just been true of my life. Dorothy and I we feel like our life has just been like a constant transition, which is, if that's what the Lord's calling us to, then he'll get us through it, which is great. And we're excited about the upcoming transitions. But we really want to, when we move next, to really feel like we could put roots down. Because we were in, from being in college, to moving to East Asia for 2 years. And then seminary is just kind of it can be a turbulent time is not the right word, but you're doing like different roles, trying to figure out what the Lord's calling you to, and different jobs, and just, trying to, just make it through the seminary years and do well in your studies. And so I think this transition, we really want to settle down, and put down roots where we are would be a really big one. And then, off the top of my head, I would say that's the big one, is just one more transition, but we're excited for it.
Questions? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
What a wonderful testimony of God's grace. Let me pray real quick. Dismiss. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this time. Thank you for William's heart, Lord, for your word and your ministry. Lord, we thank you that he's following your will for him in his life. And I pray, Lord, that you would be with both him and Dorothy, Lord, as they're about to enter another transition, another chapter. Lord, that this would, if it's your will, Lord, you would give them wisdom. This would be a place that they might spend a little more time than they have been in the last several years. So thank you for RUF, Lord, and what it means to this church, and just the blessing we have to support it. Pray, Lord, that you would continue to be with it nationally, internationally, globally. Continue to bless William and those efforts. We pray for the young hearts that are even here in attendance to hear this testimony, Lord, of your grace in his life, Lord, that these seeds be planted for future RUF leaders. Prepare our hearts for your word and guide us and direct us, Lord, this day. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.